Grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. It is good to be with you again. And I'm back in the sanctuary at St. Armand's Quay Lutheran Church for a particular reason. Since we returned to in-person worship, we have shared the Word. That's our pulpit behind me. But we haven't frequently shared Holy Communion. Since COVID first arrived, we've been in a Eucharistic, a Holy Communion fast, refraining from Holy Communion while the pandemic swirled around us. When we returned to in-person worship, we had a plan. It didn't quite work out as we'd intended, but we had a plan. The plan was that we would return to in-person worship, and after a few weeks, once we were satisfied that we had the rhythm of worship under such strange circumstances, once we were satisfied that the guidelines were being adhered to and that we could live comfortably with those guidelines, our plan was then, after a few weeks, to reintroduce Holy Communion, beginning just with the host, just with the wafer. And then a few weeks after that, and at that point we hoped that COVID might even be a thing of the past, then we would return to full communion with the bread and the wine. But if you remember the chronology of what happened a month or two ago, you'll remember that once we started to worship in person again, boy, it was just a few weeks later, just when we were planning to reintroduce Holy Communion, it was just then that the rates of COVID in Florida spiked. Some colleagues of mine who just at that time were about to go back to in-person worship cancelled the plans to return to in-person worship. Well, here at St. Armand's Quay Lutheran Church, we'd already begun. We had wonderful guidelines in place. They were being adhered to. So we continued with our in-person worship. But as the cases of COVID spiked in Florida, we made a decision not to return to Holy Communion at that time. Now we discover that COVID is here. Well, we don't know till when. For quite some time, at least, it'll be with us. And we have been without the Blessed Sacrament for a long time. And so we have decided that on the second Sunday in September, September 13th, Holy Communion will be reintroduced at St. Armand's Quay Lutheran Church, both at the 9 o'clock and the 11 o'clock service. And we will stick with our original plan, which is to commune only with the host. Now, there are all sorts of other ways that other churches are celebrating Holy Communion at a time of COVID. Folks at St. Armand's Quay Lutheran Church have been kind enough to send me notes and photographs and video clips from congregations that they know where Holy Communion is being shared, and that, combined with conversations I've had with friends and colleagues, we have discovered that there are multiple ways to do this. Multiple ways to share Holy Communion in a time of COVID. What we've also discovered is that there are pros and cons for each and every way. Just as there are pros and cons with celebrating Holy Communion with only the host. But I am convinced that sharing Holy Communion with the host only is the safest, surest way to celebrate Holy Communion at St. Armand's Quay Lutheran Church safely and well. And by well, I also include in a manner that we recognize, are comfortable with, as being a celebration of Holy Communion. I won't bore you with all the whys and wherefores, but let me assure you that it is much easier to keep the hosts in a clean, sanitary manner, and to share them and to distribute them in like manner than it is almost any other way. And so that's what we'll do. The receptacle will be cleaned and disinfected. A fresh packet of hosts will be opened for each celebration. The hosts will remain covered until they are ready to be distributed. You will see online and in person how particular I will be in cleaning my hands and keeping my face mask on during the distribution. And families and couples and individuals will be brought to the altar, one group at a time, still wearing masks, and will receive only from me at the altar rail. It is the safest way. And then, down the line, as we see conditions improve, then we'll be in a position to safely return to communion in both kinds, host and wine. But we'll begin with the host. Now, there are other ways to share Holy Communion, and let me rewind back to that very beginning of COVID, when I first reached out to you to tell you that in-person worship had ended at St. Arman's Quay. At that time we thought for several weeks. It turned out for several months before we returned to in-person worship just a few weeks ago. And the very first time I told you about in-person worship being cancelled, I also told you that there was a way that you could receive Holy Communion. That you could call me or the church office, make an appointment to come in as an individual person or a couple or a small group of family members, make an appointment to come to church, and we would share Holy Communion together. Just the few of us gathered at the altar. I have to tell you that over the months, only about 35 people have taken me up on that offer, some multiple times. So clearly there are some folks in the congregation who aren't yet ready to drive over to St. Arman's and meet even one-on-one with me. So we have another method of sharing Holy Communion. You can call me and ask to receive a communion kit. It will come in a box like this. Inside, you'll find something that looks like this. Those are pre-filled and sealed and sanitized cups. A familiar shape. We will have consecrated all of these travel kits so that the meal you receive at your home will be a sharing of the meal that happened here in the midst of the community of St. Arman's Quay Lutheran Church. And when the time is right, you'll open the first seal. And you'll find a host, which you'll consume. And then break the second seal, and you'll receive the grape juice. It's a little different from what we're accustomed to. But this is an emergency. And if you can't make it into church to receive Holy Communion in worship on a Sunday, and if you can't make an appointment to come in and receive Holy Communion from me, then this is another way, another option. We'll simply drop this kit at your doorstep, or the reception desk at your condo building, or at the front gate of your gated community. And you can commune individually, or as a couple, or as a family at your leisure. As I said, you'll open the kit. You'll find however many hosts and grape juice containers as you need, and a little order of service. This order of service comes from the ELCA. It is very simple. It is clear. And it guides you through sharing Holy Communion, alone, as a couple, or as a family. I hope you can see in what we're trying to do that anyone who desires to receive Holy Communion has an option that fits their needs or their limitations or the reality of the situation that they find themselves in right now. You may decide to continue your Eucharistic fast, maybe part of your spiritual discipline. But if you have a yearning to receive Holy Communion, we have a way of bringing you Holy Communion. Just ask. Just call me, call the church office, email me, email the church office. Ask a friend to do it for you. However you're comfortable reaching out to me, to us, do so that you can be part of this Eucharistic, Holy Communion community of believers, once again at St. Armand's Quay Lutheran Church. And don't worry if you can't remember all the details I've just gone over, although you can rewind and watch again. If you have any questions, call me or call the church office. Much of what I've just said was included in last month's keynotes or is available in next month's keynotes or somewhere else on Connections. But if all else fails, call me. Hey, I can explain and we can chat at the same time. I would love that. Lastly, remember also that I'm still available for pastoral conversation. I can sit in your driveway and shout to you in your doorway if you need. I'll talk to you by phone or by Zoom. Or you can come into the church and we'll find a safe distancing and wear masks and talk to each other. If your conscience is particularly troubled and you would like to make confession and receive absolution, call me. I know we're separated by social distancing, but the church and the gospel of Jesus Christ will always find a way around the limitations of the world, even around the limitations of COVID. In short, we're here for you. I'm here for you. Please reach out. You are a beloved child of God in this community. Never forget that. And never doubt that. May God be with you until we meet again.